Hey, you made it. Well, you almost made it. You made it to week 6 anyway, right? All right. This is the week you have been looking forward to. Now you just have to get through it. So let's see if we can't help you get through it. You'll be happy to know that today's video will be short because you have a lot of work to do that you need to do and you need the time to do it. So let's kind of go and find what we need. Okay, we have our module 6. You'll be happy to note a couple of things in the suggested course pacing. The portfolio assignment is our goal for the week. It is, some people think it's a really hard assignment. Some people think it's a really easy assignment. We'll get to that in a little bit here. But you should first spend the day yesterday, if not yesterday, then today, reading through that portfolio assignment so you know what's coming and how much time you need to allot to it this week, right? Then you'll be selecting an essay to revise. You'll be making those corrections and collecting artifacts for and from it. Perhaps using over here, when you scroll down, you can see that there is a tutor. So maybe you decided to use that in tutor.com right here. Maybe you want to submit it back over there, and that can be a way of making it better, but also an artifact, of course. You could then select a second essay that you're going to be revising and making the same kind of revisions and collecting artifacts from it. And then on Thursday, you're drafting your first portfolio introduction, which is you telling me what you've done. I will go through all of this when we look at this stuff in a minute here, but this is the pacing. On Friday, you're assembling everything together, any essay, any appendix or appendices that you want to include. I'll tell you more about those. And then, of course, Saturday you can proofread and Sunday you can turn it in. Note, there is no discussion board. I know some of you don't like the discussion board, so yay for you. Notice the first 3 readings are the same as last week. That is not, you're not crazy. Indiana Tech chose to put those in again because each one of those things, like this first one, when you go here, it's a handbook. So when you go over to the student section here, it gives you lots of different options. The writer's handbook here is the one that I recommend again. And then maybe just pick something that you want to have some that you feel like you're struggling with and read it. So make it different than last time. Same thing with the second one they give you. This is the same assignment from last week. It's a grammar compilation. You go there, pick something, looks like this. Pick something that you are having trouble with. This can be something that you're working on for your essays and for the portfolio. Keep working on that. And this is also the same. This is that sample APA essay. So if you're still struggling with how do I do APA, go back and look at that sample and fix something that you need to fix yet, right? We all have stuff that we still need to fix. So again, here I'm still just going through the module. There's no discussion. Yay. And some of you are probably sad, I know. The next thing here that you're looking at is, of course, the Dropbox. And this is where you submit the final draft essay for Project 3 interview. And that's the one where you did all the 30-minute interview with the individual who has a membership in that discourse community. There is a connected resource if you want to look back that one more time just to make sure that you're doing that. And as we move forward, we go next into the portfolio. So let's go to the portfolio. Okay, this is what you're looking at for doing this week. Take that out of your way. All right, so, and I've kind of alluded to all this before, but now I'm going to do it a little bit more in depth. So your syllabus, which you started with reading at the very beginning, 6 weeks ago, the portfolio says at the end of the semester, students will choose 2 of the essays they've written. So over the last 5 weeks, what are those essays that you like? You're going to substantially revise them one more time. And in an appendix is just a part of the portfolio that's at the end. You'll be providing examples of process writing related. Now that can be any number of things. I have seen pictures of brainstorming on napkins in a bar. I have seen outlines. I have seen interview-related question thoughts, like brainstorming questions that you're asking your interview. I've seen pictures of brainstorming with like bubble thoughts, if you ever learned how to do that. I've seen tutor work where somebody sent something to the tutor and then gotten feedback and they send that. Anything that has to do with the drafting of those essays. Okay, so anything that says, I started here, I continued here, I ended here. So we've seen the final. We haven't seen all the preliminary stuff. So looking back for some of those things that you're doing, and since you're revising them one more time, you're producing more of that sort of thing this week, right? So even if you've gotten rid of all of it in the past, you should be producing more because you're doing a substantial draft revision from last time to now. Okay, so you'll be choosing those two, you'll be revising them, you'll be including them and the process writing in a portfolio. And then the other thing you're going to be doing is writing an introduction. So this is new writing altogether. The introduction will contextualize the artifacts and say, these are the two essays that I chose. These are the two things I chose. This is why I chose them. Maybe you chose them because they were your best work, and then you want to explain that. Maybe you chose them because they were your worst work, and you wanted to explain that. Either one of those things is fine. But the introduction will tell me about it. It'll tell me about the artifacts. These are the things that were part of the drafting of the article. This is what they are. Make sure those things are well labeled. A portfolio should be kind of like a business document in which everything is well labeled, has headings, it's easy to find. I've even seen portfolios with an index at the beginning. That's possible too. So lots of different things you can do there. You're still producing all of those things and kind of compiling them together. I will evaluate things again, and the portfolio grade is worth 100 points. So that is approximately 10% of your total grade for the course. So it's kind of the last opportunity to showcase your good stuff, your best stuff. As I say, it's your time to shine. It's also the very last thing that I see from you. So it's the thing that will stick in my head the most. So if you are on the line of going down a grade or going up a grade, it's the thing that will sway my opinion the most and where you should be. So just keep that in mind, that it's not something you want to slough off at the last moment, even though it's the last thing. And I know you're like, yay, I'm almost done. And if you're taking traditional 16-week courses in addition to this, which some of you are, I know this is the time of the semester in which spring happens, you get spring fever, and it's just tough to focus. So don't neglect your focus at this point in time, okay? Okay, so the introduction, again, here's more of the things that I'm looking for, some things that we want to see in it. So you'll have the portfolio, it'll say portfolio, then it'll say, if you have an index, you'll have an index. Next thing would be your introduction. So explaining why you chose the things that you did, why they're there, what's in the portfolio. And then you will have, so you have three options, right? So you had project 1, project 2, and project 3. So you're going to pick 2 of those. So you'll pick 2 of those. You'll include them in the portfolio, well labeled. And then at the end of that, you're going to have an appendix. And the appendix will contain the pre-writing work that went into the essays. Again, make sure it is well labeled, so I know this came from essay or project 2. This came from project 3, so that I can see what it is very easily. I shouldn't have to sit there and contemplate, what is this thing? Because that makes me not happy, because what if I get it wrong, right? There is, as always, a little rubric here to kind of help you. And again, the rubric is intended for you to look at prior to turning something in, so that you can go through it and go, have I done this? So you can do a sort of self-evaluation and go, okay, if I were to evaluate myself, I would give myself a 5 out of 10. Maybe that's a little ding, ding, ding flag for you to go, okay, maybe I shouldn't turn this in yet. Maybe I need to make this better before I turn it in. So really what we want here is for you to look at these things to fix some of the errors that you might find and then turn it in, right? That's the idea, is to make it better for yourself. Okay, so do think about that carefully before you turn something in. Okay. All right, so that's your major assignment today or this week, is this portfolio. So turning in the essay, project number 3, potentially choosing that one to include in the portfolio. If not, then 1 or 2. And then the only other thing that you have to do is this live weekly reflection, which is based on what you're hearing today. Okay, and once you get through that, the only thing left to do is do a course evaluation, right? And we do appreciate your course evaluations. I do see them eventually. It's usually a month or so after the class ends, and of course they're anonymous. Keep in mind that I do not design the course. Indiana Tech designs the course. So if you have any feedback on that, the way it's designed, that will go to them, not to me. So just so that you know where things get put. Okay, now, because you're doing this portfolio, a lot of times I get the question, why? What's the point of doing a portfolio other than to compile your stuff? And so I wanted to show you a couple of quick videos. One of them is how to make one, and another one is a potential way in which you might use one. So part of this, how you make one, is useful directly to this course because it's a similar portfolio. Part of this is something you might want to consider for your own business sense and why. So some of this will be directly applicable to this course, and some of it will just give you some ideas for why you might want to take the skill set that you're learning and apply it to something else. So let's take a look.
If you don't already have a personal portfolio website, you honestly might be missing out on a lot of opportunities. So many employers want to see what you've done in the past. And while a lot of people think personal portfolio websites are really only for artists and photographers, it's actually great for pretty much anybody out there. I've seen scientists benefit from this, making a website linking to all of the different published articles. I've also seen a lot of professionals, anybody who's an engineer or a marketing agent or really anything you are, you can make a personal portfolio website and just show your projects in different tabs, different pages, and make it very easy to understand what you've done in the past. It's a great way to professionally present your work, and it's something that I know a lot of employers really appreciate. So in this video, I'm going to show you step-by-step how to make your own personal portfolio website. It's very easy to do, requires no coding, no extra knowledge of anything, and we are actually going to be using Wix for this. So you guys can click the link in the top of the description below. That's our affiliate link, and it'll take you over to Wix.com. And I'm going to head over to my desktop now, and we're going to get started. Okay, so here we are on my desktop, and the first thing we want to do...
Real quick, just in case you aren't familiar with Wix, Wix is a quick and easy, and I have one of my own, so I know it's quick and easy so that I can tell you that, way of creating a website for yourself, but it actually does most of the work for you. So all you do is answer some questions, and it creates it for you. So if this makes you happy, think about that.
Is actually go down to the link in the top of the description of this video and click on that. It should open up in a new tab, or you can type in santrelmedia.com/Wix website. Our affiliate link will take you over to Wix. That way we're just making sure we're all starting from the same place. You have a giant blue button here. The background might look a little bit different, but we're going to click on Start Now and create our account. So I already have an account set up. I'm going to start a new one just to show you guys. So this wants us to log in. I'm going to sign up instead. We're going to type in a new email. And that brings us right here. So we're going to click on this blue button. We're going to say Get Started. It's going to ask what you're making your website for. So for me, I'm just going to say I'm making it for myself, a personal portfolio. It's my first time doing that. But again, it doesn't really matter which one you choose there. And then, of course, here is going to be where we look for a personal portfolio. So we could say maybe I'm going to be like a photographer. So I'm going to say personal site, personal profile, portfolio, tons of options. And this is really just going to help you choose in a second the best theme for your website. So we're going to say next, and that's going to take us right here. Now, between the two, even though there's a giant enticing blue button here, we actually want to choose a template. We're going to go over here and do it this way. You just have a lot more freedom when you're doing this. You have a lot more control over your website. but it is a little bit more work. So we're going to do this though. So from here, personal portfolio, we have a lot of different options here, and you can choose any one of these. And of course, there are many other ones as well. So you can go from the drop down and choose anything here, but I'm going to go down and say that as a photography website, maybe I'm very interested in this one. So we can go and view it. It looks like this. She has a video in the background. That looks really cool. And I'm going to say, yeah, I like this one. Let's edit this one. So that'll bring us into our editor. All right, so as you can see, honestly, within the first minute or so, we already have an account. We already have our website fully built. And then all we have to do is customize it, add our own images, add our own text, and make it our own. So before I show you how to edit everything on your site, let's go through some of the fundamentals. So starting on the top, we have our settings across here. So the first thing, the site, we can go and save that. It should save if you click save here. And we also have auto save on, so you shouldn't have to worry about that. But if you ever want to go here, you can hit save. And the first time you save, it's going to make you name it. So we're going to actually publish with a better domain in a second. But starting off, you can say Mike O'Brien Portfolio or whatever you want to name your website.
I'm going to pause for just a second because I wanted to note something. Wix is free, but it will try and keep selling you stuff, of course, because we're the product if something's free. So make sure if you want to use Wix to put your portfolio out there free, that you keep choosing the free thing and look for edit the site. Don't ignore them when they try and sell you something, because you can.
And just do that right there. So I'm going to say done. It saves our website. That way we have it going and continually auto saving. Then we can go to settings. And here, there's a lot of more advanced stuff if you want to add a Gmail account or whatever you're looking for there. But I'm really just going to go and add our icon. So the icon is really important. It's something that a lot of people forget. And if you look at the tabs on the top of your browser, even right now, you'll see like the little Wix logo next to Wix. You'll see like the YouTube logo next to a YouTube tab. And you want your own website to have your own logo up there. So if we go to settings, we go down to add our icon, and we can actually add something. It should be a small image, something probably similar to your logo. I'm just going to upload an image right here. But we actually have to upgrade to a premium plan in order to do that. So if I just click on upgrade to premium, it's something that, I recommend for almost every website anyway. You can have a website with Wix that you don't have to upgrade, but you have some limitations with that. So if you go down here, you'll see that like enterprise plans, business, e-commerce, or website plans, 3 different options.
And don't forget, there's a free one, of course. They want you to spend money, but there's free.
From here, there's a bunch of different ones. So I'm just going to go with the combo plan right here. For a personal portfolio, typically that's all people really need. You get your custom domain, it removes all the ads, you have a decent amount of storage unless you have a lot of videos. And other than that, you're probably not running ads for your personal portfolio. You're probably not doing stuff like that. So for a lot of people, I think this is the one to go with. So I'm going to select that. And of course, the pricing is lower for the longer you subscribe. So you can.
I'm going to scoot past some of this stuff so we can see stuff.
Links there, and then go and publish that. And you should be able to upload an image. The image I'm going to choose is just going to be probably like the Santro logo, for example. So let's go and upload media. We can go and upload from our computer. And actually, I'm just going to use this coffee cup. That looks like that'll do just fine. So it's going to upload that image. It's going to resize it to make it a nice little icon on the top. And we're going to choose this file. So there we go. It's going to show up right next to our site, the site title, and we're going to say save. All right, so now we're ready to actually edit our website. Now, there's other things on the top I didn't cover.
Notice he did all of that in a couple minutes, right? You will be able to too. In fact, it might even be faster for you because you won't have to listen to him talking. So Wix is quite wonderful. There's the personal, there's the professional. You can create something. You can create it and link it to another website if you want to. If you're a newbie, like most of you probably are, it's fairly simple to have it up and running in a very short period of time, and then have the pictures even chosen for you, or you can choose them and work on them yourself. So let's say you have a portfolio like you're working on now for this particular class. That's one way of having a portfolio where you have examples of work that you have done, right? These are examples of work I've done. Other ways that we use portfolios are to highlight ourselves in other ways. So let's say I have maybe some examples. Maybe I'm an artist, so I have examples of my art. I can do that. Or maybe I have examples of my songwriting or my video creation. Or maybe I have something that I've handmade, or maybe, whatever it is that is applicable to your particular job. you can use a portfolio to showcase these examples. So now here's my resume, but then here's some examples of things that I've done that are related to it. And so you can have a fairly simple website that you can direct people to if they want to know more about you. And if you have a LinkedIn account, which many of you do, because that's kind of like Facebook, but for professionals, you can include your link to your portfolio there as well. Now, the second video that I wanted to show you is something called a portfolio career. And this is another way, sometimes people ask me, well, okay, so I see the value of a portfolio in various different ways. Maybe they have multiple portfolios on the web or on their computer. But here's something called a portfolio career. So if you like the idea of creating this portfolio, here's another way in which it might be useful.
Join me in welcoming Helen Wiles. Difficult negotiating the stage in the skirt. Hello, my name is Helen Wiles, and as my introducer has just told you, I'm here today to talk to you about this concept of portfolio careers. I define myself as a portfolio careerist, so I can share my own experiences. I've met a lot of other portfolio careerists. And I want to talk to you today a little bit about how we can think about the concept of a portfolio career and how we can use it to actually redefine work. So what will we look at? We'll look at some definitions. Lots of other people have spoken about it, have tried to define it. So I'll take a look at that with you. I'll also talk about what I call the tyranny of specialisation, which is my belief that actually the education system kind of forces us through a funnel that perhaps isn't always that useful, especially in today's sort of economic climate. I'll also look at some assumptions that we make about our careers and about the sort of linear progression that they might follow. So I'll look at that. And then really kind of get to my point, I suppose, about how portfolio careers could help us redefine work, redefine portfolio careers. But before I keep pointing over here, by the way, because the clicker thing won't work for me. So my colleague here is helping me out. That's why I'm not just being rude. I'm going to ask you to help me with this talk, because no pressure when you get the brief for a TED talk. It says, try and give the talk of your life. No, I haven't got to do anything too spectacular there. So I'm going to ask for your assistance with this. Bit of audience participation. I won't pick on anyone specifically, I promise. So for this, I'm going to ask that everybody in the room who is able to stand, if you could please stand for me now. Thank you. Oh, so grateful when people do that and don't sit there looking at me blindly. Okay. Now, I've got a picture up here. You'll probably recognise, those of you who are Londoners or work or study in London. It's the good old Boris Bikes. And this is just a warm-up question. I don't have anything to do with portfolio careers. But what I want you to do is the way this works, this little game, and I use this with my students because part of my portfolio is teaching. And essentially, it's a way of you showing me your opinion on things, marking an opinion by either standing or sitting. And it works from the premise that you're all standing up, so you're all participating right from the off. So what I'm going to ask you to do is remain standing if you have ever ridden on one of these, or maybe you ride on them regularly. So remain standing if you've had a go on a Boris bike. Isn't that interesting? That's fewer than I would have thought. I had my first go a couple of weeks ago, and it took me longer to pull it out of the stand than it did to get from Farringdon to Bank, but once I got the hang of it, it was good. And time management, an important thing in portfolio careers, going from A to B. Okay, thank you. Well, that was the warm-up. If I could ask everyone who sat down to now please stand up again. And we'll move on to the next one. So this is where we get to the point, portfolio careers. What I want you to do is remain standing if you feel you have got clarity on your career. So you know what direction you're taking it in, you know what you want to do, what you are doing. So remain standing if you feel you have got absolute clarity, and sit down if you're kind of not quite sure. Okay, that's less of a mix than the Boris bikes thing, actually. That's much more 50-50. The Boris bikes, not very many people have had a go. Okay, thank you very much for that. Please take a seat. Okay, so what does this got to do with what I'm here to talk to you about today? Well, I'm here to say that for those of you, whether you were sitting or standing when I asked you that question about whether or not you've got clarity on your careers, but actually there's an alternative way of thinking about it and really questioning this is something that you know, do we need to have clarity? Is it okay not to? So let's make a start then by thinking about some definitions of portfolio careers. Lots of people have written about it, spoken about it, tried to define it. I met the author of this book in the corner here, and what do you do? Because he noticed my blog about portfolio careers, and he's really interested in talking to people who have portfolio careers. His name's Barry Hobson, his co-author Katie Ledger define portfolio careers as doing 2 or more jobs for different employers. So that's one way of looking at it. Marianne Cantwell, another blogger on this subject, talks about this concept of free-range humans. She says we should live life on our own terms, make careers work in the way we want them to work. Ian Saunders is another author who's written books around this sort of topic. His book Juggle talks about how actually we're very able to multitask, so we don't have to do one thing. So essentially then, a portfolio career, it's an eclectic mix of lots of different types of employment experiences, not necessarily all in the same field, although they might be, and certainly not necessarily all with the same employer. So it means basically having more than one job. It means not your standard 9 to 5, you know, job for life, doing one thing kind of a route. And it may mean having multiple income streams, and it will definitely mean using more than one skill. So here I get to this point I mentioned about the tyranny of specialisation. My fear is that what happens in education and throughout our lives is that we're funneled through the system, making choices. So when you're young and you're at school, there's lots of subjects, there's lots of choices. We have a very broad curriculum. But as we get older, we're gradually funneled down and down and down and forced to choose more and more specialist areas, which is fine. It works quite well for the qualification system, if you think that works well, but that's a whole other debate. But what happens is you are honing towards more and more towards a single career type. So you might, I remember when I was at school, I was very frustrated being about 14 years old and having to start making choices, start kind of picking options that were going to restrict me. And I remember I really wanted to be a vet. I was dead set on this. I did my work experience at a vet, and I thought, yes, this is the career for me. And I saw a careers advisor, and they said, oh, well, if you want to be a vet, you've got to be very, very good at science. You've got to get all A's in your GCSEs and A-levels, because only a few universities in the country do veterinary medicine. So you've got to be really good. You've really got to specialise in science. So I did my science GCSEs, and I did quite well. But I was no genius at science. So the next stage, choosing my A-levels, I was told, well, you know, maybe these grades aren't going to be quite what you need to get into vet school. So, you know, maybe you need to think about look at the things you're good at. And the things I was good at kind of didn't really have anything to do with science or veterinary medicine. I was good at English. So I ended up doing English. And I actually then went on to study English at university, and I now lecture in English. But from a really long time ago, from my school days, I was being funneled down a certain route. Because obviously from the school's point of view, it makes sense, doesn't it? I'll be more likely to pass the exams, get good grades, look good on their sort of stats, if I do what I'm good at and what I'll easily get good grades in. So I was being funneled and being forced to specialise, which dictated to some degree what my career options would be.
In a world where academic deadlines meet the blank page.
Grammarly?
Hi, yes.
So let me tell you a little bit about my last proper job. This was a couple of years ago now. I was an advisor on citizenship education. And I hear you going, well, what's that got to do with English? You were just talking about English. If you could move on to the next one, please. My last proper job, although I was a specialist in citizenship education, I'd got there through this kind of specialising in English route, and I'll tell you how. I came out of uni and I thought, well, I've got to look for something that's got something to do with English. I did an English degree. So I went into journalism and I was trained and I was a staff writer. So, you know, I used words, English, you know, made sense. And then after that, I was I kind of enjoyed studying English, so I did my master's, and then I did an MPhil because I kind of couldn't stop being a student really. But on the back of that, I had these sort of skills in like written communication, which lent itself to various temp jobs and things that I went on to do to fund my postgraduate study. And I, quite by chance, as often happens in careers, you can plan it all you like, sometimes things just happen. I ended up in this job, which was an advisor on citizenship education, but it used a lot of those skills that were relevant to my degree, English. As part of that role, as you can see up here, I was a writer, I was an editor, I was involved in the publishing of resources. But I did all of these other things as well, and lots of bits of them, and none of them were particularly relevant or obvious to my job title, my job title being citizenship development advisor. But my point here is that in any job that we go on to do after university, inevitably you're going to use a portfolio of skills. So now, let me tell you a little bit about my portfolio career and as it is now. When I left my last proper job a couple of years ago, I thought, you know, because I'd developed it, I'd been in it a good sort of decade, and I thought, how am I going to have something fulfilling that uses all the skills I've developed in the ways that I want them to? In a way, it was almost like there was no other job out there that would enable me to use all of those skills. So I started thinking a bit more strategically about actually having a portfolio career. I thought, maybe there is no one job that's going to suit me now. And actually, in the economic climate, there weren't that many jobs that were going to suit anybody, and then, you know, to some degree, they're still not. So I thought, right, what are my main areas of interest? And I divided them up like this. So I've got education. Under that, I happen to be a qualified teacher, so I do some lecturing, I do some tuition, I do education consultancy. There's words, which obviously you get that from the specialisation route I was telling you about, the English and the journalism, that side of things. And then there was this other element. I'd done some stuff around websites and kind of creativity in previous roles, but hadn't really specialised in it a great deal. So I thought, I'm going to have a chunk of it that does that as well. So I made sure that was in the mix. So what's the difference then between the traditional sort of job that I showed you before and this portfolio model that I showed you now? Well, the portfolio job has a tendency to favour one field. So although I used a broad portfolio of skills in that proper job that I showed you, it was in one field. It was in education, and it was in a very specific area of education. A portfolio career is much more eclectic. It can be much more widespread, encompass many more areas. And a portfolio career also challenges some assumptions. So one of our assumptions when we think about careers, isn't it, that, you know, I've got to have a regular monthly salary, I've got to have a paycheck, so I know exactly what's coming in. But, as we know, the issue with this is recessions, redundancies, they do happen. And so perhaps we need to rethink our model of how we go about achieving the regular monthly income we need to achieve to keep roofs over our heads. Another assumption we make is that a career path should be somehow linear, that we study, that we get our qualifications or whatever it is we learn to do, we get a job in that thing or something sort of vaguely related to it, we get more training in that role, and we work our way up towards more money, more status, specialising more and more along the way. But my argument is, what's wrong with a few detours, actually? And why can't we be a little bit more open to detours? I mean, like this guy here, obviously, he probably learned a few things going off-road, you know, like how to get your 4x4 out of the ditch. But, you know, it's a metaphor. But it was just really to illustrate that along the way, we can detour, we can go off-piste, and we can find out some really interesting things. Sometimes the most interesting career experiences I have had been things that I didn't particularly plan. They weren't really in that linear route. And some of the most kind of memorable, meaningful experiences I ever had came through kind of taking these detours, which were quite often a bit scary to take.
Question: would you build a website for a major brand with more than 200 million?
Another assumption that we make about careers is that length of service equates to skill. So that, you know, if you've been doing something a really, really long time, you must be good at it. But what I'm going to ask you to do I won't make you stand up for it this time, is just take a moment, just sort of mentally step out of the room for a second. I want you to think about the best and the worst teacher that you ever had. I'm just going to give you a sec just to think about your best and worst teacher ever. And what I'm betting is, as you're sitting here thinking about it, is that some of you will have picked a teacher who was old and wise and really knew their thing. They were inspiring for the love of their subject, for the fact that they really seemed to know what they were talking about. But equally, I bet there are some of you who are thinking about someone who kind of fits the description of being kind of, you know, a bit of an old crusty academic maybe, but who unfortunately just wasn't that great at communicating their ideas and their subject. So just because they've been doing it for a really long time didn't necessarily mean they were good at it. And equally, some of you might think, I can think of one of my worst teachers, lovely though she was young and inexperienced and wasn't being given great guidance, so she really struggled to teach me and my class. Whereas for some of you, I bet you could think of some young teachers who actually were really enthusiastic, inspiring and motivating and had a kind of fresh new approach. So my argument is length of service, not a sensible assumption. So what am I advocating then? Am I saying we shouldn't specialise? No, I'm not saying that at all. There are some things you absolutely need to specialise in. I'm not advocating for 1 minute that you will go away and do a bit of everything and never get good at anything. But what I am saying is we should look upon portfolio careers as a way to become expert generalists. And GPs are an excellent example of this. Obviously, they specialise in one field. Their specialism is medicine, broadly. But they have to have a very broad general knowledge of medicine. They don't specialise. They're not brain surgeons. They're not cardiologists. They have a broad knowledge so that they can refer you on to those specialists. And there's nothing wrong with that. We recognise GPs as, you know, we hold them in high esteem, don't we? They've been to medical school. You know, they are to be admired for that work, but they are expert generalists. And I'd like to see more expert generalists coming through in the next generations, approaching work in a new way, and having kind of expert general knowledge or a lot of knowledge in perhaps more than one field, because the human brain's quite big. We can do that.
Okay, I think that gives you a little bit of an example of what you could do with a portfolio. Go back over here. Now, for some of you, you're thinking, I'm not in the English field. In fact, I'm not in humanities at all. I've had students use portfolios successfully in all kinds of fields, including engineering, where they are able to provide some samples of their work. So do not neglect the idea of thinking through what are the kinds of work that I do that people might ask that I can see. It's kind of like having a business card, only in a much more detailed and expansive way, so that you can actually prove or provide samples of yourself. So some people use it just to provide things about themselves. Some people use it for all kinds of other work, including, you know, consultancies and that sort of thing. So at this point, I am going to let you go because you have an awful lot of work to do. And you're almost finished. So I know you're excited about getting to that point and finishing. So I will let you go with that and wish you an excellent week. And thank you for being a part of this class.